Old Mines and Old Engines. Edward the Blue Engine was resting in the yards at his station when the Fat Controller drove up in his car. "I've decided to reopen one of the abandoned mines on Thomas's branch line," he said. "I want you to help restore it." Edward beamed. "Of course, sir," he answered jovially. "But, if you excuse me for asking, who will look after the yards?" "I will find someone capable." Edward left for the mines later that day. However, the only spare shunter was Devious Diesel. The Fat Controller had no choice but to reluctantly choose him. Boko was resting in the sheds as Diesel oiled in. "Good morning, Boko," he greeted slyly. "Hello, Diesel. I take it you're the new replacement shunter." "Indeed I am. I'm so honored to work alongside an engine of your prestigious value from now on." "Well," Boko explained, "you'll only be working here until Edward returns." "I wouldn't be so sure," Diesel schemed. "Edward's far too old for yard work. That dusty old mine's all he's good for." Boko was skeptical. "Sure thing, Diesel," and he purred away to take his goods. Diesel was cross. Meanwhile, Edward was helping clear out an old mine shaft. The supports had long since collapsed and the tunnels were almost completely filled with rubble. A special tunnel boring machine was being used to clear the shafts of dirt. The debris was loaded into trucks for Edward to take to the dump. Edward had to pass through his station en route. He stopped to chat with Boko. He asked who was shunting the yard for him. "Diesel," Boko sighed. "He's resting in the goods shed right now." Edward was displeased. "I suppose I'll have to whip him into shape." "No," said Boko. "You'll be late. Let me do it. I can make up for lost time later, Boko. Besides, Diesel needs to be taught a lesson." Edward puffed over to the resting Diesel. He whistled to wake him. "Oh!" Diesel jumped. "What year is it?" He realized who had woke him. "Oh, what are you doing here?" Edward's reply was brief. "You won't replace me as shunter here if you insist on lounging." "What?" Diesel said, abashed. I don't know what you're talking about." "Diesel, from what I understand about you, you will stop at nothing to prove you're the superior engine." Diesel growled. "All right," he groaned. "Have it your way." And he scuttled back to his work. Over the next few days, Edward kept finding Diesel asleep in his shed. He kept having to wake him and tell him to go back to work. No matter how often he scolded him, Diesel never seemed to learn. The old engine started to believe he was wasting his time. One night, Edward was taking his empty trucks back to the site. He had had to school the oily engine and was making up for lost time. The rails creaked and groaned as he sped across them. He was much too concerned about being tardy as he approached an old signal. Edward had realized too late. He braked hard. The truck's buffers clashed and heard one of them fall sideways. "How did this happen, Edward?" asked the Fat Controller once Boko had arrived with a crane. I'm sorry, sir," Edward sighed. "No, tell me. It's not like you to have actions like this." Before Edward could get a word out, a voice spoke. "Edward was just helping out, sir. It was Boko." "Explain," demanded the Fat Controller. "Edward was just taking time out of his work to whip Diesel into shape. I expect he was just making up for lost time." "I see." The Fat Controller began to walk back to his car. "Excuse me, sir," cried a workman. He wheeled around. "What is it, Sid?" Sid was holding an old blank book. "We found it in the derailed truck. It must have been in the debris inside the mine." The controller stared at it for a long time before taking it from Sid's hands. "I thought this thing was lost to the sands of time," he said under his breath. He looked up at the workman. "I'll be taking this." He got into his car and drove off. As Edward watched the Fat Controller's car disappear down the lane, he couldn't help but wonder what the significance of the book could be.